Okay, I think we are live. I hope we are live. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty getting started here, so hopefully it didn't cause any problems. If anyone could please let me know if you could hear me, so I know that we have sound and everything's working okay, or if you're experiencing any issues. Let me make me a little bit brighter here. All right, so good morning. And so happy to have you today. I'm very gracious and excited to get after this. So I have a bunch of questions I'm going to go over. If you have anything, please just leave them in the comments and I will cover your question. What I did is I kind of sorted it. I had a bunch of questions. Some of them were going to be not necessarily the best to answer in a live video, but if I can't get to them all today, which I think I should be able to, depending on how this goes, I will do a follow-up video and answer those questions on there. So I've got it kind of sorted from what I think would be the better ones to answer down to the ones that didn't really give me a whole lot of context. And I'll just start going through them. So like I said, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I am happy to go over them with you. And if someone could please let me know if you can hear me, or maybe the comments aren't working, just say anything, even if it's just hi, just so I know we're live and everything is working okay here. I see there's some people on, but I don't see any comments yet. So hopefully this is working okay. So anyway, going over the questions. First one I've got is, what is a proper way? All right, thank you, Jessica. Wasn't really sure if this was going here. So Priscilla, would you say if one did not lose body fat but increased their muscle mass, would the body fat percentage be lower? If yes, how would the physique look? Fatter, leaner, no change, whatever. So if you did not lose body fat and you increased your muscle, all right, you would have a slightly less body fat because you added weight, but it was all muscles, so it was lean muscle, so you'd have a slightly less body fat percentage, and your physique would not look fatter. Now, it's a little complex, but for the most part, if anything, you would probably look relatively the same because you don't really display the lean muscle very well until down the road after you've cut the fat off. But it really just depends significantly on the individual. So if someone is completely new to training, has never done anything, and then starts and they start building muscle quickly because they're new to things, then they're going to see some pretty dramatic changes in body composition right off the bat. You're going to look better. You're going to look leaner because you're going to have a significant amount more muscle, and it's going to make a big difference. If someone's more obese, right, it's probably not going to make a difference in how you look in that moment, but it's definitely setting you up for success. As always, with everything, it always kind of depends on the individual, the context. There's a lot of different variables involved. What do you think of a 16-year-old bulking? Do you think it's necessary to build size as a natural? So again, it just kind of depends on your goals. Whether you're 16 years old or 20 years old or 40 years old, you certainly can build, and there's a lot of value to building, but it always just kind of depends on what your goals are and what your preferences are. So I don't necessarily know for sure what you're asking here. But if you're asking, is it necessary to build size? Is it necessary to bulk to build size? In the beginning stages, no, especially if you are 16 and you haven't done anything yet and you just get into training. The training response is very powerful in the beginning. They call it newbie gains. That's kind of like what the business calls it. And it's your body will adapt very quickly to this training, and you will build muscle relatively quickly in the beginning stages. So in that instance, you don't have to go through a prototypical bulk as in, okay, make sure we're increasing calories to make sure you're in an optimal environment to build muscle. Now, it would help, it would still help, but it's not necessary, and you could get some really good recomp even just staying at maintenance by doing that. So hopefully that answers that question, but if you want any clarification or anything, just let me know. Can you lower your set point weight? All right, I've got that on my list, so I'm going to hold off on that one. If you've been eating 1,500 for 2 weeks and lost 1.2 kilograms the first week, but the next week I only lost 0.5 to 1 kilogram, and I want a diet break the next week, how much calories should I eat then? 1,500 calories for 2 weeks, lost 1.2 kilogram. That's a big drop, unless you need to lose a lot of weight. The next week, you only lost 1 kilogram, a half to 1 kilogram, which would probably still be reasonable for most people. And I want to do diet break. So diet break calories, I usually just do it around refeeds. So if you're taking refeeds, just do that. I don't know if you are or not. Usually this is going to be, I mean, there's so many different ways to do this, but a rough estimate would be increasing your carb intake by maybe around 40 to 60%, maybe a little bit more fat, maybe 5 to 10 more grams. So whatever that would be. So that could be, for one person, it could be 200 calories. For the other person, it could be 500 calories, or it could be 1,000 calories. Now, if you're just wanting to go to maintenance and you're losing about a kilogram in a week, that's a lot. A kilogram would be like 2 pounds. That would be a very large deficit. So you could more aggressively add at that point if you want. You could probably literally do up to like 1,000 calories if you're really losing a kilogram in a week. That's a big deficit. But keep in mind too, 1 week doesn't tell us a whole lot. We're looking more at trends when you're looking at weight loss on a week-by-week basis. The weekly average is helpful, but we're still looking at it as a bigger picture, because some weeks you're going to lose less, some weeks you're going to lose more. There's a lot of variables, training inflammation, hormones, all different kinds of things could affect that. So don't get too stressed out about what the exact calories should be. The point is to just increase some calories, reduce your cardio a little bit, give the body a bit of a break. And whether it's a full maintenance calories or not, doesn't really matter too much. I mean, you're still going to get benefit. Even if you're still in a small deficit, just by eating a few hundred calories more, it's still helpful if that helps. Thanks, Kyra. All right. Some people say you can't, and some people say you can, but I'm not sure. Okay, I'll go ahead and answer that question. I've got it on my list, but so can you lower your set point weight if you're in a deficit for only 3? Oh, this is different. Sorry about that. So she's asking, if you lower your set point weight, I'm not sure I'm understanding that. If you lower your set point weight, if you're in a deficit for only 3 weeks and taking a week at maintenance, along with diet breaks, some people say, I'm not understanding the question. Can you try to rephrase that a little bit? Maybe I'm making it. Okay, I'll make a stab at it. I think what you're saying is, will your metabolism adapt down a little bit if you take 3 weeks of a deficit and then take a week at maintenance? Which the answer is yes, you're still going to see some adaptations, but it's going to be less significant by taking diet breaks. The more frequently you're taking diet breaks, the more it's going to help keep your hormones in a better spot, keep your metabolism in a better spot. So it's going to help minimize it, but there's no way to just completely avoid any metabolic slowdowns during a diet. It's just a natural occurrence. The diet breaks just help minimize them as much as possible. And same thing with like double refeeds and things like that. Please tell us about metabolic flexibility and how to apply it. I don't even know what that means. I don't mean that negatively. Just I don't understand what you mean by that. If you could try to rephrase the question for me, so I can understand a little bit better. Do we have a genetic set point weight that we can't change? So I think this was your question. I have it on here somewhere. Okay, I'm assuming it's this one. Do you think body fat set point can be changed over time? Example, a person who has been over 30% body fat all their life, diets from 30% to 25, hold that a while and feel normal, then diet to from 25% to 20%, maybe even a tad lower. In this scenario where there are no crash diets involved and the process was slow and healthy, do you think the person at 15 to 20% will eventually feel like she did at 30%? So basically what she's asking is, we all have this rough body fat set point. Your body kind of gets used to being some around a certain range of body fat. And that's part of what makes it so hard to keep weight off, is because your body wants you to get back to that set point. So if you lose, say, 30 pounds, your body wants you to gain those 30 pounds back. It's just a natural part of the process. So it has all these changes. This is where a lot of these hormonal changes and metabolic slowdowns occur, and then your body starts fighting you and it wants you to get back there. So you don't feel as good. You're more hungry, you're more tired, you just kind of feel like crap, your motivation goes, and your body is trying to get you to gain that weight back. So if you ever get in a position where you're really struggling or if you have gained weight back in the past and you're really struggling with it, understand that there's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't make you a weak person. It's a natural part of the process. Your body's doing everything it can to get you back there. So this question is, if I was at 30% and now I'm at 15 to 20% down the road, will I eventually still feel good like I did at 30% at this lower body fat? Which the answer is yes, you can absolutely create a new body fat set point. It just takes time. I can't tell you how long it's going to take, but it's a long process. And the longer you stay around a certain body fat, the more you're going to get used to that, and the more your body is going to start to adapt to that level of body fat, and it's going to start thinking it's the new norm. Whereas if you diet down really hard, crash diet, gain the weight back again really quick, that's only kind of reinforcing that higher body fat set point. So you got to stay there for a while. Doesn't mean you have to just completely maintain and there can't be any fluctuations, but you got to avoid the extreme ups and downs that so many people fall into. But yes, absolutely, you can create a new body fat set point, in my opinion. I don't know if that's really been studied. What fat percentage should I shoot for to have a fit, shredded look for women? Totally, there is no certain number I can give you. It just, honestly, I don't even look at body fat percentages. I've never known my own. I don't care what it is. I could make some speculations, but the thing is, everyone looks so much different at different body fats, right? So like, for me, if I was to take a wild guess, even when I'm up to around 15, 16, 17% body fat, I still have a visible trace of abs. Not like extremely ripped abs, but they're still visible. For most men, that's probably not going to be the case. Some people will start to see abs around 12%, some people 10%. Some people don't even see body fat and I'm talking guys, I know you're asking about women here. Some guys won't even see it until they get completely shredded, like stage look, like 6-7%. It's just so different for everybody. We hold fat in different areas, and we all have completely different looks. So it's almost impossible to say. And don't shoot for the percentage is my advice. Just shoot for the look. Like, you'll know if you get there, if you have the look, then it doesn't matter if you're 15% or 20% or whatever percent. It doesn't matter what the percentage is if you have the look you want. You know what I mean? So base your progress off of making changes with your body composition, how you're looking, and that's going to be what's going to tell you if you have that look or not. You know what I mean? I just don't find value in body fat personally, other than being able to say I was X body fat. Do you suggest keto or intermittent fasting for losing fat? Only if you find that sustainable. So can they help you lose fat? Absolutely. So the problem is, if you just do something just to try to lose weight because you think it's the best way to do it, if you don't like it, don't enjoy it, and it's not sustainable, you're just going to finish that diet and then go back to the way things were and just gain the weight back. And you clearly don't want that. So we need to look at sustainability all the time. Keto is not going to be sustainable for most people. Some people love it. Like, if you love it and it's something that you can do long-term, then great, by all means do it. Intermittent fasting is probably a little bit more sustainable just because it's a shortened eating window. But even then, the shortened eating window, that's the main benefit of intermittent fasting. It's not that the fasting itself causes fat loss. It's that by shrinking your eating window to a smaller period of time, you end up consuming less calories as a whole throughout the day, just because you're not eating as much. So you eat less calories, you start losing weight. So everyone thinks, oh, great, intermittent fasting is amazing. It can be helpful. And I kind of intermittent fast, not really intentionally, just the way that I like to eat. I've never been hungry in the morning my entire life, like ever. So I don't eat in the morning, and that allows me to have more calories later in the day. And so I usually don't eat till lunch, and then I have dinner, and then usually my final meal before bed. And that's just kind of the way that I like to eat. And I've always been really hungry at night. So rather than trying to force eating in the morning when I'm not hungry, and then still being starving at the end of the day, even if I ate all my calories earlier, I still get to the end of the day, I'm still hungry. So I'm better off saving calories for when I'm usually the most hungry, which is at the end of the day, and eating them then. But there's no magic behind it. It's just, it can be helpful. It can be a great tool, intermittent fasting, to help reduce your calories. But again, there's no magic to any diet. It's all about creating that calorie deficit. All right, where was I here? Is there any reason to avoid my son's 15 and 17 to start taking creatine? No, not to my knowledge. It's the most extensively researched supplement there is. Tried and true, time and time again, shows to be very beneficial. I personally think, unless you have some sort of a kidney issue, which I do, so I can't really take creatine. But unless you have some sort of condition where your doctor says you shouldn't be taking it, then it is safe and it's very helpful. especially for people who eat plant-based diets, because then you're not getting any creatine, very, very little creatine in your diet. So anyways, to my knowledge, of course, always do your own research, but to my knowledge, there's no reason to not do it just because they're teenagers. How do you deal with clients who have, okay, I've got that on my list too. So, well, I'll handle it. So how do you deal with clients who have an eating disorder past or an extreme diet history? Do you slowly increase their calories until their hormones and systems such as menstrual cycle are back to normal? How long does it typically take for their hormones and metabolism to get back to where they used to be? So I got to stress, the first thing I want to say about this is I am not a therapist. I am not qualified to treat eating disorders, to diagnose eating disorders or anything like that. So most of the time, unless they have already gone through the proper treatment and have improved their disorder and basically gotten rid of it and are in a much better place, I won't work with that person just because it would be irresponsible for me to do that. Certainly, I have a lot of different strategies I like to use to help people mentally, which is the big part of the eating disorder, but it's just beyond my expertise, so to speak. So I don't typically take them unless they've already gone through the treatment and are confident they're in a better place at that point. If they are still in a pretty bad spot from it, then typically, in my opinion, and it always depends on the person and their goals, but in my opinion, it's usually better to do a faster increase, because if you're doing a slow reverse and your hormones are all jacked up and you're really in a bad place and just miserable, the slower you increase your calories, the longer it's going to take you to feel better. Yes, you're probably going to gain a little bit more body fat by going faster, but we're trying to get you into a better place physiologically to nip this in the bud. And if we take it super slow and we just allow your metabolism to continue to adapt as you get more calories, which is the benefit for most people, but that's not a benefit if you're trying to improve some of these things and put yourself in a better position. But again, I got to stress this is beyond my scope, so to speak. And you've got to take it with a grain of salt. And just, if you have an eating disorder, please seek professional help from a qualified therapist. It's so important. And way more important than who cares if you gain some fat. Like, I know we don't want to, but you're better off doing that and mentally getting over that and getting over some of the physiological issues that come from the disorder than anything else. So that's my thoughts on that. Hey, Elise, very welcome. If you have to choose between pre-workout and BCAAs for someone whose goal is to lose fat and work out on an empty stomach in the morning, what would you suggest? I would suggest a pre-workout with BCAAs in it. They do exist. Core Nutritionals. I don't talk about it very often, but I am a Core Nutritionals ambassador. I always have my discount code in the description. It's Colin, COLIN. They have a pre-workout that has caffeine and some other things. I believe there's citrulline malate and a few other things along with BCAAs. So it's a great, in my opinion, a great pre-workout for someone who is going into a workout fasted, because then you get the best of both worlds, so to speak. Or you could add them together. You could take a pre-workout and add your BCAAs separately, so you get them both. Because I do recommend BCAAs to anyone who's training fasted, just to stop that the protein breakdown that's happening. How do you discern between reverse dieting from your dieting calories rather than starting from maintenance? From your dieting calories, starting from maintenance. I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. So I think what you're asking is, okay, how do you start a reverse diet if you've been dieting and your metabolism's slower versus if you're starting from maintenance? But a lot of times they run into each other. So remember that your maintenance calories are a moving target. Your metabolism suppresses when you diet. So if your maintenance calories before you started dieting were 2,200, and now you've gotten down to, say, after a long period of dieting, you're down to 1,400 calories, and your progress has stopped. Well, now 1,400 calories is your new maintenance calories. So you're starting after a diet, but you're still coming from your maintenance calories. If you're maintaining your weight, no matter what, that's your maintenance calories. The suppression from that is what we're trying to undo with the reverse. We're trying to get those calories back up to a better place. Doesn't mean you necessarily get to 2,200 calories, because remember, you weighed more at that point. Now you've lost weight, so you don't have as much of an energy demand on the body, so you might not get all the way back up. But we're trying to get you back up to what should be your theoretical maintenance calories while minimizing the fat gain. Because if you just went from like 1,400 to 1,900 right away and you're maintaining on those 1,400, you're going to gain weight pretty quickly because your body can't handle it. Doing the reverse allows you to get up. If you're going from a reverse from true maintenance calories, as in you haven't started the diet yet and you're at maintenance, well, now you're basically going into like a lean bulk, so to speak. I have a video on using reverse dieting to lean bulk. So hopefully that made sense. And if I didn't understand, please let me know and clarify. What are some ways we can support you? Oh, thank you. You have been so helpful. I can't thank you enough. The information you provide was very relatable. Best way you can support me is the simple ones are just like videos. So like if you want to like this video, that'd be great. Liking and commenting, that sends a signal to YouTube that things are good and helpful. Obviously sharing videos is helpful, but honestly, the best way you can possibly support me is to just keep watching the videos and watch them all the way through. That's what I've learned is the biggest signal for YouTube that people like it is how long they watch the video. So the more watch time and audience retention you get, the better that video is going to do. So especially if you like watch the whole video and then watch another one of mine and then another one of mine, YouTube goes, okay, this guy is good, right? So the best thing you can do is watch it all the way through. I always tell my wife, she's like, I'm like, if you don't even care about the video, just play it and just like watch it. Just let it play in the background. You don't even have to watch it. Just make sure that watch time goes so it doesn't stop soon. Because if somebody starts a video and stops it after like 10 seconds, that's a bad signal to YouTube that video sucks and they shouldn't promote it to other people. So the more you watch the video, the better off. And that's how you can support me the best. Thank you. I really appreciate that. You don't need BCAAs. It's just broken down to proteins. Yeah, you don't need BCAAs, but for someone who is training fasted, I think it's a good idea. I really do. There's a difference. And then there also is some research that suggests that taking BCAAs between meals, especially in a deficit, can extend the period that you can keep protein synthesis increased. So there's like a refractory period in protein synthesis. There was a study once where they took people, actual humans, and infused them with amino acids for 6 hours. And what they saw was for the first like 2 hours, there was a huge spike in protein synthesis. And then over the next hour, it started coming back down to basically baseline, and it just stayed at baseline for the next 3 hours. So what that tells us is you can increase protein synthesis, but then there's only so long that it can stay up. And then once it comes back down, so that's why like eating lots of small meals might actually be suboptimal when it comes to building muscle. But this other research showed that if they introduce amino acids in between meals, like halfway through, so like at maybe 2.5 hours after the meal, you could extend that time of how long protein synthesis can be elevated. So there could be a small difference there. Again, we're talking about minuscule, tiny little factors. But if you're someone who just wants to build as much muscle as possible, these are little things that could possibly be done to help. It's just kind of a cost basis analysis. But yeah, you don't need BCAAs, but there are different ways that can be helpful. Does intermittent fasting work in the long run? Yeah, as long as you can sustain it. Absolutely. But it's still a calorie balance game. It's still calories in, calories out. Now that's complex. I've done all kinds of videos on this, so you can always look them up. But it is a calories in, calories out equation, and keep in mind that your metabolism does adapt. So if it's a good method for you, then yes, but you're still going to have to adjust. Like you can't just do intermittent fasting and have it work forever. Eventually, if you're eating the same amount, eventually your body's going to adapt to that, and you need to eat less. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Where did we get the cute dog? We actually got her from a company called Compassion Kind here in Florida. They are a rescue company. They go to Puerto Rico and rescue dogs from there and bring them back here. And we picked her up about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago at this point now, a few months after our first dog, Jasmine, died after 13 years. And felt like it was the appropriate amount of time, and went and got her, and she's been an absolute blessing. Man, that dog is the happiest dog you'll ever meet in your life. She just loves everybody. I don't have an ED. I lost my period for 2 years due to over-exercising and being in a calorie deficit for too long. I increased my calories by 200 per week. I'm noticing hormonal improvements and have energy and hunger cues back. Should I continue to hold them until yes, I would continue going on until it comes back. But even then, you got to remember, it's going to take time. I can't tell you how long. It could take a really long time. Everyone's different here, and there's a lot of different factors. But a calorie surplus is only going to help. Some of it can literally be if your body fat's really low, by adding body fat back on, that's actually going to help more than anything get that back. But there could be a lot of different factors. And again, I'm not like a doctor or anything. I know that your maintenance calories is a moving target. So how should I estimate my maintenance calories for diet breaks? So again, it's kind of a challenging question because there's a lot of different factors. I actually have a video called How to Diet Break, I believe. Maybe I can just pull it up. And it covers a lot of different factors. But usually, I mean, most of the time, I just tell people between 200 and 500 calories. If you're losing faster, go to the higher end. If you're losing slower, go to the lower end. But there's so many variables, and it could be a lot more in some cases. How to diet break. But if you're doing refeeds, just the simple way is just whatever your refeeds are, just do that for a whole week and just kind of see. Here we go. Share, copy. Save this for later if you want. All right, where are we? When people compete, do they decide what weight they want to go to at what they want to go in at? Because sometimes you still won't look shredded as you might have to keep dieting down. Can you explain? People do have weight targets, but they shouldn't. No, I'm not someone who does show prep for people. It's kind of beyond my expertise, and I don't have interest in it. I did it a couple times. I just didn't like it. It wasn't for me, so I don't really coach competitors. But I've gone through it myself. I'm around it a lot. My friends Paul and Steven, like that's their main job, and I'm always around it. I'm at shows all the time when we're not on lockdown from Corona. Yeah, but it's a mistake to have a weight target because it's not like the weight matters. It's not like the judges are having you step on a scale and judging it based by that. They're completely judging the look. So you're chasing the look. The look is all that matters. And a lot of times we have to get much leaner than we think, or have to lose much more weight than we think to get to a position we want. The body holds a lot of body fat, like a lot of body fat, way more than you think. And I mean, I remember when I got down to like 170 in my prep, I thought, wow, I'm like right there. I at the lowest, I think I saw like 157, 158 on the scale before filling back out to around 160 for the show day. It's just to get really completely stage lean shredded the way you should. Usually we have to get to lower targets than we think. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, and just, I mean, it's good to have an idea of how much time you're going to need and everything, but give yourself as much time as possible, because there's always going to be things that come up. The body's not going to always respond the way we want. And just plan that it's going to be more difficult than you think. Let me see. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. If you're interested, I have a video called, just look up my name and BCAAs, and it goes through the science of how it can be used. For someone who is 5'11" and 180 pounds and wants to go to 10%, I'm assuming body fat, how many times do you think he would need to cut calories? If he's feeling fine and motivated, I think it's fine to go below 1,200. So it's almost an impossible question to answer because everyone responds so differently. Like, I've literally seen people be able to stay on the exact same calories for months without needing to make adjustments, as long as we're taking diet breaks, of course. It also, sometimes people need to change like every 3 or 4 weeks. It just really depends. We all have kind of a different adaptive metabolisms, so to speak. So if your metabolism adapts faster, this is great for reverse dieting, because now you can keep increasing your calories and your body just adapts, and you can increase your calories really fast without losing or without building much body fat. It works against you though when it's time to cut, because then your body starts to adapt down to those calories faster and you don't see results as quickly. So one of the things that I found is people who tend to respond really well during a reverse diet, usually have to battle that much harder in a cutting phase, and vice versa. If you don't respond very well during a reverse diet, a lot of times when it's time to cut, it's going to go better because your body just doesn't adapt very fast. So you can make these big changes, and then the body will go and you can ride it out for a while. So it really depends on a lot. So really, it's just about monitoring and adjusting. So just keep going. If it's still working and you're feeling okay and everything's going fine and you're seeing progress, just keep it going. Don't even think about adjusting. I do think it's a good idea, no matter what, though, to take a diet break every at least 4 to 6 weeks, just to make sure you're keeping yourself in as good a spot as possible. And then just adjust. And then can you get below 1200? Yes, you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to how you're feeling and pay attention to the warning signs. And if your body starts really fighting you hard, you need to get out quickly. You don't want to spend a lot of time there. And 1200 it's not like a magic number. Some people have to. Some people literally start a diet at that, especially more petite women who have, especially if they have a longer history of dieting. Like it's just so variable. People always give out these random numbers that people shouldn't ever go below. And it's like, no, some people actually have to do that, even with a really good reverse diet. But you just have to be careful about it and be honest and don't push it. If your body's fighting you, get out. And then there are a couple targets that I really like to try to avoid going below, though, with that being said, and that is with regards to fat, because we need a certain amount of fat to function. And so for women, if we're getting below about 30 grams of fat, I'm like, okay, that's getting really low, and we got to be very super cautious here. Usually below 30 or 40 is kind of like warning signs. Again, I'm not saying you can't go below that, but that's when we're really starting to pay attention and go, okay, we got to really be careful here. And then for men, below about 40 grams. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you. I was wondering if you track carbs from artificial sweeteners. No, I don't. I think it's overkill. Not that you don't. You do get some calories from it. It's minimal. I think it kind of depends on the artificial sweetener. I've looked at it before. Different ones have different values. Some are almost nothing. Some are like 1 or 2 calories per gram, whereas like a gram of carbs is 4. This is going to be a fraction of that. But it's just looking too far into things, in my opinion. And especially if it's something that you do on a daily basis anyways, it's not going to make a difference. So I wouldn't, if it doesn't bother you and you don't have any negative mental problems from it and you want to track it, then fine. But to me, that's overkill, and it's not going to make any kind of real difference whatsoever. So I personally wouldn't worry about that. My biggest problem is consistency. If I'm good. I fall off and I gain back the weight so quickly that I need to consistently remove the same 10 to 15 pounds. So I'm stuck. That's a very, very common problem. And I can't tell you exactly why this is. There's a lot of common reasons why. A lot of the times it's unsustainable methods. All right. So we do things that we hate just because we think it's the best way to get the weight off, and then you can't take it anymore. Keep in mind too, it's like what I talked about earlier, your hormones and metabolism are going to get all jacked up. Your body's going to start fighting you, and it wants you to gain weight back. So it's literally trying to get you to gain the weight back. So it's easy to fall into that when your body is literally trying to make you do it. And then a lot of times the problem is we do it so frequently that the body just keeps adapting, and it just gets harder and harder and harder. And we never spend enough time out of a deficit to put ourselves into a good position again. So if you're just constantly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, your body just fights you so hard. Whereas if you finally stop, do a good reverse diet, stay out of a deficit for a long time, it depends on a lot, but 6 months to a year, now you're going to be in a much better position most of the time, and it can be a different story. But it's all about making it a lifestyle, right? We gotta, a lot of times it's feeling like, so you say your biggest problem is consistency. A lot of times the reason for that is because we feel like we need to be perfect. So there's no flexibility, there's no balance. It's you're either 100% on or you're 100% off. And that's the fastest way to lose. Like nobody's going to succeed that way. You can't be perfect all the time. There has to be balance. So I have a saying sometimes that you're better to be 80% on most of the time than you are 100% on less than half the time. You know what I mean? So we need to create balance in our lives and not feel the need to be perfect, and learn to include foods that we enjoy into our diet. So it's not this all or nothing approach. that's kind of like an overview. There could be a lot of different reasons, but understand that it's got to be a lifestyle. You got to be in it for the long haul, and there can't be any deadlines. There can't be any end date, right? It's got to be something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean you need to diet hard the rest of your life, but you do have to always make an effort. You can never be done. It's always going to be, exercise, paying attention to nutrition. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean constantly strictly dieting or strictly tracking or anything, but you do have to pay attention. You can't just ever just say, well, screw this and just continue, just eat whatever you want in whatever quantities you want. That's never going to end well. Keep fighting the good fight, though. You'll get there. Yeah, so Stephanie Buttermore, that goes right in line with what I was saying about you need to be okay with gaining body fat. So she did the extreme. She was very lean for a very long time, and her body was just like done. And she just said, I'm going all in, and I don't care how much weight I'm going to gain. I'm just going to eat and eat and eat, and I'm going to fix this. From workout perspective on chest day, I do both incline and flat barbell and dumbbell presses, 4 sets each, apart from cable flies and dips. Is this too much pressing or overtraining for the chest? No, that should be fine. Again, it just depends. I mean, there's as long as you can recover, okay, then it's fine. And just keep in mind, you have to do more training volume over time to continue to see results. So a mistake a lot of people make is they've never done anything, and they go out and they train 6-7 days a week and just beat themselves into a pulp. At first, they'll see fantastic results. Then the body just kind of just gets run into the ground. And then once it does adapt to that, well, you have to do more and more and more. It's an unwinnable thing. But what is that? 1, 2? No, that seems reasonable. 2 or 3 or 4 exercises. That's fine. Did she have her period? Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't follow closely. Problem is I'm only 5'2". My maintenance calories are about 1,600. If I want to lose weight, I need to be between 1,100 and 1,200 calories. Is so low, and I'm good for a few weeks, and that's too hard. It's too hard to maintain, so I fall off the wagon, gain the weight back that I work so hard to lose. Maybe I should try to do refeeds. Yeah, so I mean that's exactly what I'm saying. It can't be this all or nothing approach. So the mistake you're making is, okay, you have to eat 1,200 calories to lose weight. That's fine. But then when it stops working, it can't just be F it. Now I'm just going to just stuff myself. You need to reverse diet out. And you have to do this almost no matter what, whether you reach your goal or not. Eventually, you're going to have to reverse back out again. So for people who have a really hard time or don't have a lot of room to make adjustments with calories, this is what you have to do. Diet down, lose some weight, all right, reverse back out, gain a little bit of weight back, but we control it this way. Now you cut down again, reverse back out, gain it a little bit. So if you think about it, like, and this is a completely random example, but let's say you lose, I don't know how much weight you have to lose, but let's say you lose 20 pounds, all right? And then you reverse out, say you have 60, 70 pounds to lose. You lose 20, 25 pounds, all right? Then you gain 5 to 10 back in the reverse, right? Then you lose 20, 25 pounds, gain 5 to 10 back. Lose 20 pounds. See, over time, you start chipping away at it and go over. So many people feel like they have to get all the way there in one shot, or there's no point and I'm done. And then they just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You have to be okay with getting a small amount of weight back and taking your time. And it doesn't have to be all in one shot. And it probably won't be for most people, especially if you have a long history of dieting. So, I don't know where you're at metabolically at this point. You could probably use a good period of reverse dieting from what it sounds anyways. Make sure you're in a good spot metabolically. Go after it. Take frequent diet breaks. Allow yourself to have multiple consecutive day refeeds. Do these things that are going to help keep you in a better place so you don't have to be quite so aggressive. Don't create deadlines. Be patient. Take your time and it will come. But if you make a mad dash and keep going hard for a little bit and then stopping and then going completely back, you'll never get there. You're very welcome. I'm on day 11 of diet break, lost 1 pound from day 1. Should I stay on the diet break or go back to calorie deficit? If you're losing, keep it going, man. Like there's no, in my opinion, unless like you have a show that you need to get ready for or something, which I'm assuming you don't. If you're losing weight and you're on a diet break, why would you not take advantage of that? You know what I mean? Keep it going. And then once you stop losing weight, now go back to your calorie deficit and you should be in a really good place to do so. My age is 48. I used to weigh 199, and that's when I started dieting, and I refused to see 200. I went down to 160, and now I'm 170. Okay, well, see, you're still down, right? You're still down 30 pounds, which is great. We have to understand the difference between gaining all the way back and some too, and you have to gain some back. It's almost impossible not to. We always like to compare ourselves to our best, which no matter when you stop a diet, the chances of completely maintaining that exact weight for a very long period of time is very low, unless you just want to make this your entire life. You know what I mean? So now you do your best to kind of roughly maintain around here. You're probably going to gain a little bit of weight back, but then you can tackle the next 20, 30 pounds, just as I was just saying before. Can you ever burn fat with higher calories after a 2-week diet break, or do you always tend to go back down to where you were prior or even lower? I always go back prior or lower. It's a 2-week break is not going to be enough time, in my opinion, to go on higher calories. I mean, could it happen? Is it physiologically possible? Probably. I don't think it's ever been studied. It's probably possible, but it's not worth the risk, in my opinion. If you were losing okay before, take a 2-week diet break, go back to it. There's no reason you shouldn't continue to see results now, if not even better. If you weren't losing before and then you take the break, then you're going to want to come back and get more aggressive, in my opinion, and drop your calories further from what your pre-diet break levels were. But I don't think it's smart to try to come back from a diet break dieting on higher calories. I think you risk not being able to see the results you want and then getting some of those slowdowns. So it just isn't worth it in my mind. I would go at a minimum, go back to what you were doing before. I have the barbell and the power block dumbbells. What is the third equipment you would recommend for more exercise variations? Barbell, power block dumbbells, some sort of like either a power rack with a bench inside of it, or some kind of multi-unit machine that has like cables and stuff like that would be a good thing in my opinion. Of course, it depends on your goals. Any diet that for you is enjoyable and easy to stick to is the best for long-term results. 100%. If you hate your diet, you will likely fail. 100%. Well said. And I heard a quote a while back. I can't remember who said it, but I thought it was great. And they said, there is no happy ending to an unhappy journey. So if what you're doing during the journey is something that you completely hate, how is that going to create a happy ending? You might lose the weight, but you're not going to continue to do it. So you're just going to gain the weight back when you're done anyways, especially when you feel overly restricted and over it. Your hormones are talking to you loud. Your metabolism is tanked. You're probably going to binge and just gain the weight back. It's got to be a lifestyle, 100%. So that's why I don't dog on any diets. Like I don't necessarily have the best things to say about some of them. And I use keto as an example a lot, but man, if you love keto and it brings you joy and everything, then great. But you always have to stop too. Some people claim that they like a diet, but all they really do is like the results that it's giving them. But once the results stop, all of a sudden they hate that diet. So you got to understand there's a difference between liking results and liking an actual diet. Now, no matter what, there's going to be restriction. Like you can't lose weight without some form of restriction. At a minimum, you have to restrict calories no matter where it comes from. So, I mean, it's always going to be a challenge. You're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to embrace the suck sometimes. But we want to try to like minimize the suck as much as possible whenever we can. You know what I mean? Very welcome. Thank you. What foods do you recommend for sport what foods would you recommend for sport? What demands running? Well, I mean, I don't really have magic foods, but if you're going for, I'm assuming you're asking like if you're going to go for a run, is there anything that you should take ahead of time, which would be more quick digesting carbs would be good. Fruits and anything light. You don't want anything too heavy that's going to kind of bog you down. But just quicker digesting carbs that give you immediate energy and fuel you for that workout. If I didn't understand, please let me know. Do your clients lose more fat with a shorter eating window, 8 hours eating rest, or do they eat all day? They eat however they prefer to eat. So I don't tell them to or even ask them how frequently they eat. I just give them numbers to hit. If they're hitting their numbers within a range, right? We're not talking, okay, you have to hit exactly 120 grams of protein. You have to hit exactly 132 grams of carbs. No, all right. We give ranges and it's over the average for the week, right? We don't need to be perfect every day. But whatever helps them, if if they enjoy eating in a shortened eating window, then great. If that helps them, great. If they prefer more small meals, great. If they prefer a few larger meals, great. Whatever you can stick to, as Cold Shiver said recently, you got to enjoy it. And no, it doesn't make any difference. This has been studied time and time again now. There was one, I would have to find it. There was one that was a really good one that looked at like all different kinds of eating strategies you could think of in terms of spacing out meals. So basically same macros, but it was like, I don't know, 2 meals, 4 meals, 6 meals, 9 meals, 12 meals. But again, same amount of total food throughout the day, no difference at all. It doesn't matter. Once hormones and metabolism are in a healthy place, is it okay to go into a deficit and taking weeks at maintenance? I got to read that again. Once hormones and metabolism are in a healthy place, is it okay to go into a deficit and take weeks at maintenance diet breaks? It depends on how long it's been. And it's hard for you to know too. A mistake that a lot of people make, and I think I had this in my notes, is they just try to get their calories up to a certain place and then immediately diet, and their body hasn't had a time to adapt. So even if your hormones do start to improve, even if they do get to a better spot, if you just immediately slash your calories again, your body's going to be like, whoa, hold up. This is not okay. And it's probably going to fight you. The longer you can take out of a deficit and allow your body to adapt to those higher calories, understand that with your hormones and stuff in a better spot for a longer period of time, you're better. So you want to be really patient, is my short answer to that. Yeah, Kim, you're a great example of someone who has to diet on very, very low calories, but it can be done and it works. It's just yes, no all or nothing. It just kills. It absolutely kills. You cannot win an all or nothing mentality. If you have that mentality, you will lose. When have you ever seen an all or nothing mentality not end in nothing? It is probably in the entire history of time never happened. If I'm eating 1,500 and want to incorporate a refeeding day, how much to eat? And should I do it for 1 or 2 days in a row? So again, a lot of different variables here. I would start with eating around 50% more carbs. All right. So I don't know what your carb breakdown of that would be. But let's just say, for instance, you're eating 100 grams of carbs, eat 150 grams of carbs, and then maybe add like 5 to 10 grams of fat and just kind of see, and then do it for 2 days in a row. So a single day refeed is helpful in terms of like the mental benefit of being able to enjoy a little bit more food, the benefit of increasing glycogen storage in your muscles, so you get a little boost from that. But it doesn't appear like you get any actual hormonal or metabolic benefits from a single day refeed, but you probably do from 2 consecutive days. So I have now gotten to the point where I don't even deal with single day refeeds unless somebody just really wants it for the mental purpose. But if I'm doing refeeds, I'm almost always doing at least a double refeed, consecutive day refeed, to make sure we're getting those benefits. And it just it's really showed up in results too. Yeah, I maybe do more examples of reverse dieting at some point. What improves cardio? I don't understand the question. What improves cardio quicker, steady state or HIIT? Improves what? I guess I don't understand. If you could clarify that. Should I stop drinking cow milk for weight loss? No. You don't have to stop doing anything. You don't have to stop eating anything or drinking anything to lose weight. If you drank a lot of milk and you stopped drinking milk, would you lose weight? Yeah, probably, because you're taking away a bunch of calories. If all else was equal, if you ate the exact same things you ate all day long, but took away 400 calories worth of milk a day, well, now you're in a 400 calorie deficit and you lose weight. But there's nothing wrong with milk. Milk is great. What is your opinion on micro cutting and micro bulking? Essentially, this is a way to stay leaner year round and be able to see progress. I think this is effective putting on muscle. By micro cutting and bulking, do you mean like short windows back and forth, or do you just mean taking it really slowly? If it's back and forth, then no, I think it would be a terrible method for building muscle, because you keep going back into a deficit. And to really build a significant amount of muscle, you need to be in a calorie surplus for a longer period of time. And a lot of times for people who really want to build a lot of muscle, if it's a huge priority, you're going to have to get to levels of body fat you're uncomfortable with to significantly build. I'm not saying you have to do that to be able to build, but I'm like, if you're talking about, I really want to build a lot of muscle, it's going to take a long time, and it's going to, I want to make sure I word this right. Muscle is built by the gram. Fat is built by the ounce. So you build fat at a much higher rate than you build muscle, especially if you are not new to training. So it takes a lot of time, and you want to give it the time that it needs. If I'm understanding that right, I might not be. What is the purpose? What is the purpose, and how long would you do a mini reverse? Is that a way to increase calories to burn fat even a little? So a mini reverse, that's a term that I've coined. I don't know if anybody else uses it, but I used it. I use it during the holiday season usually, right? So if somebody's in a cutting phase, say we're getting close to the holidays, that's a difficult time to cut. It's not fun, right? We want to be able to enjoy and be more flexible with things, and it just makes sense for most people. Some people don't mind cutting through the holidays and they can do great. But if you struggle with it, okay, let's stop. Let's put a pause on the cut. Let's take the next couple of months. Let's bump you up to roughly diet break numbers at first, get you out of a deficit, get your calories up so you can enjoy it, start improving your hormones, start improving your metabolism. And then we'll just kind of slowly do it, or we'll just do, I don't want to use the word slowly. We'll just do a reverse through the rest of the holiday season. That's going to give you a nice long break. By the time you're done with it, you will have minimized weight gain this way, fat gain. And once that's done, now we can come back and you'll be in an even better position than where you left off from to pick that cutting phase back up again. The more breaks you take, the better off you're going to be metabolically. So the mini reverse is just taking kind of a lengthy diet break where we may increase some calories. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just bump calories up and just kind of ride them out and then come back later. But if we can make some increases and get calories up a little bit more, there's both mental and physiological benefits to it. So why not? You know what I mean? But it's not something I typically do. It's just more around the holiday season, but it can always be done too. Like if you're just like, you know what, like I don't want to be done with the cut, but I'm kind of over it at this point. I just want to take a little bit of a break. Okay, let's take a couple months and go through a small reverse diet and come back later. A lot of times people do that though, and they find that, okay, I'm overcutting. Like, let's just do a full reverse at that point. Oh, where was I? RP recommends staying at maintenance one and a half times you spent dieting before you diet again. Seems like a safe bet. Yeah, I mean the longer you can do it, the better. I typically say the minimum you should reverse diet before cutting again is the length of time that you dieted. So if you dieted for 4 months, you don't want to think about dieting again until you've been out of it for 4 months. But again, that's the minimum. 1.5 to even I prefer 2 times if possible is better. And the longer, the better. The longer, the better. Always. So if I was to do a steady state cardio for a month, then a HIIT for a month, would I be fitter doing steady state cardio, or would I be fitter from HIIT? Neither. Now, I mean, it depends what you mean by fit. Like steady state cardio has benefits of being lower impact, it's easier to recover from, and you actually utilize fat for energy more preferentially, whereas with HIIT, where you're in those more intense, really high heart rates, now your body's prioritizing carbs instead of fat. Now, it doesn't mean that one burns fat better than the other. Don't get those twisted. But so for performance basis, HIIT's probably going to be more beneficial for you if performance is what you're after. But if it's just to lose body fat, one's not necessarily better than the other than the fact that it's just so much harder to recover from HIIT. So I don't really typically recommend doing a lot of HIIT just because of that, especially in a calorie deficit too. And really, again, it comes down to what you prefer. Like if you love one more than the other, then great. But it's all about that calorie deficit, not, okay, do HIIT or less. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm glad you like it. I am 41, right? Yeah, 41. I'll be 42 in June. Short windows back and forth. Is there a way to build muscle not to feel uncomfortable? Yeah, I mean, you can still build muscle. I'm just talking about like if you really want to build as much muscle as possible. Like if muscle is like one of your highest priorities, you want to go through long building phases. But you can absolutely build muscle even around maintenance. and possibly even to a short deficit, depending on your personal starting position. And I think really, as long as you're out of a deficit, that's really going to be the key. It's just really hard to build, almost impossible to build in a deficit outside of maybe that initial. Like if you've been in a reverse or whatever, and you jump into a cut, you may still be able to build a little bit of muscle. And again, it just depends. Like if you're someone who's been training for 25 years and have been doing this forever, you're not going to build much muscle. Even in a building phase, you're barely going to build any muscle. Whereas if you've never trained ever before in your life, you can jump into a deficit and build tons of muscle. So it always depends. How can I get more protein in? I can't eat chicken all day. So there are a lot of different options, but also not a lot of options. Actually, I have a chart here. Let me just pull that up. It'll be easier. I'll just read them off. I wonder if there's a way I could make you see this. There probably is, but I've never done this before, so I don't know how to do it. So anyway, here's a list of good sources of protein. You already said chicken, turkey, fish, lean beef, egg whites, shrimp, buffalo, bison, ostrich, low non-fat yogurt, low non-fat cottage cheese, whey protein, plant-based protein, top sirloin flank steak, non-fat, low-fat cheese, scallops, lobster. That's the majority of them. And then there's other ones too, but then it's kind of more of a combination. Those are the ones that are like mostly protein. So hopefully that was helpful. What do you think about a mini cut after 6 months of reverse? That is too funny. I literally just recorded a video about mini cuts that goes live probably Monday or Tuesday. That is too funny. It's possible. It just depends, again, on your starting position, where you're coming from. If you dieted for more than 6 months, then I would not recommend a mini cut at 6 months. If you have a long history of dieting and you're trying to get into a better place metabolically and try to get out of that pattern, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're someone who's in a long building phase and doesn't plan on cutting anytime soon, and you have a long ways to go and you're getting uncomfortable, and you want to do a quick cutback, then sure. But they should be quick, short and sweet. But again, I cover this in my next video, so watch for that. You're very welcome. I'm glad you guys are liking it. I guess I should take this opportunity. I don't talk about my coaching a lot. I just feel like if people are interested and they want coaching, they will reach out. But if you weren't aware, I do online coaching. It's my only job. It's all I do, and I love it. And if you're interested in getting some help, getting through your whatever phase you're in and getting to your goals, there's a link in the description of all my videos, including this one that brings you to my website. You can apply for online coaching. I shoot a video just like this. I take your questionnaire and I cover it. I give you my thoughts and everything, talk about pricing because it can depend on a lot of different things, and shoot it back to you. And then we just kind of go from there and see if it makes sense. So if you're interested in coaching, check the description, go to my website, fill it out. Sometimes it's not even necessarily just about the what to do. It's being able to be objective, having someone who can be objective with you and have some accountability. That's my little pitch. I'm done. Back to the Q&A. I would appreciate, though, if you could like this video. If you're finding value, please leave it a like, and always appreciate it in all videos. All right, where was I? Protein, mini cut. Protein shakes are the easiest way to get your protein in and are perfectly healthy. Yes, so protein shakes are funny. They are often looked at as like this really negative thing, and they shouldn't be consumed. And they're like, it's the worst source of protein you can get, and they feel like it's almost like cheating. I can't imagine trying to hit my protein without whey protein. It's just so helpful. And honestly, if you wanted to make any arguments about the highest quality form of protein out there, you could make the argument that whey protein is the highest quality protein there is, because it is the highest leucine content of any protein source. And leucine is the main amino acid responsible for muscle protein synthesis. So higher content of leucine is very beneficial. And, actually, on a kind of side note to that, if you are someone who's vegan someone who doesn't eat a lot of animal sources, and you do want to build as much muscle as possible, I do recommend supplementing your protein sources with leucine because they are low in leucine content, your vegan sources of protein. I'm not saying you can't build muscle on a vegan diet. Of course you can. You 100% can. There's countless examples of jacked people on vegan diets. But if you want to get the most you can out of it, making sure you get that extra leucine in can be helpful. Seafood is like the often ignored really good source of protein. Like I love eating a lot of shrimp. If you watch my stories on Instagram, I'm always showing eating this shrimp meal that we make with olean sausage and stuff, because it's basically all protein and it's so delicious if you like seafood. You're very welcome. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. When I go on a diet break, I tend to see an increase in my weight. I tend to do a mini reverse and put on a bit more, but controlled. After I went back into a deficit, how much of it is water and how much of it is actual fat? Hard to say, but understand that a little bit of weight gain is okay, and a lot of that could be glycogen and water, especially if you've been in a big deficit. Your body holds up to roughly around 500 grams of glycogen, and each gram of glycogen is accompanied by almost 3 grams of water. So when your carbs are lower for a longer period of time, you lose your muscles just aren't holding much glycogen or water. So once you bring those carbs back up, that fills up. That's why you always have to remember that body fat and body weight aren't one of the same. Right? Almost all fluctuations in weight in the short term have nothing to do with body fat. If your scale jumps up tomorrow by a pound and a half, you probably gained 0.0 pounds of fat. It was probably all water. So I'll always remember that. That's why I like the averages. How much, it's almost impossible to say. Does time out of deficit include the reverse in holding higher calories? Yes, I do like to include that as part of it. Does eating steak raw help with gains? Not if you get sick from it and throw it all up. Okay, I have a ton of other questions. So what time is it? 12. We've been at this an hour already. You know what? I'm in it. Let's go. I'll do this as long as necessary, at least until my wife gets off work, and then we're going to go out and have some drinks. So I'm in this with as long as necessary. If you have more questions, listen below. But I've got a bunch of questions that I asked previously, just in case there weren't a lot of questions. I'm very happy to see that there were a lot of questions. Thank you. I'm so gracious for you, and I'm happy to be along this journey with you. And man, what a wonderful world we live in. But anyway, I will start going over the questions that I had. If I see more pop up, I'll go over them, and we'll take it from there. So first question, what is the proper way to enter into a maintenance phase after a successful weight loss phase? So as always, the answer depends. It depends on what your goals are. It depends on what your preferences are. What are you trying to accomplish from here? And what do you want most out of that? So the big thing we always have to consider when it comes to reverse dieting is I stumble on myself. Let me say it this way. The faster you increase your calories, the faster you're going to feel better, the faster your hormones are going to improve, the faster your metabolism is going to improve, the faster you're going to be able to eat more food and enjoy more flexibility, but the more likely you are to gain extra body fat. The slower you increase calories in a reverse diet, the longer it's going to take for all those other benefits to happen, but the less likely you are to gain weight. So it comes down to what's most important to you. And also, what can you realistically stick to? So a lot of people will say, I want to take the super slow approach because I don't want to gain any weight, but then they keep overshooting their calories because they're so hungry and they're emotional and they're binge eating like crazy. Well, sometimes by increasing your calorie target higher, it becomes more realistic and you can actually stick to it. So even though your calorie target is 100 or 200 calories higher than what you wanted, by actually hitting those, you consume less calories than a smaller target that you would completely blow out of the water because you find it's unrealistic to stick to. And so with that being said, a good strategy for a lot of people is to basically treat the first week of a reverse after a fat loss phase as like a diet break, right? So take the diet break numbers like I would normally suggest, and that's your first week, see how things go, and then start the smaller reverse process from there, depending on how things are going. And as always, we make different adjustments based on whether you're gaining, losing, maintaining, or not just weight too. We always want to look at everything, pictures and everything else. But that's kind of like your starting point. Otherwise, you can take a slower approach, but it also has some benefits because keep in mind that no matter what, like you're probably not just going to maintain that exact weight that you're done with your cut. You're gonna gain a little bit of weight over time, and that's okay, right? Don't freak out. Don't make the end of your cut the standard. That's what everyone always does. I got down to 130 pounds, and now that's my standard. I need to stick to 130 pounds forever. It's not going to happen, right? Not without it just being miserable anyway. You need to be okay with a small amount of weight gain over time. It's going to happen. But by taking a slower approach, if you can realistically do it, what you can do is basically start the reverse phase right away without making a bigger jump. So you could do like maybe 50 calories, 60 calories, whatever it may be, or maybe 100. I usually like to do at least 100 that first week, especially if you've already been losing and you haven't stalled out, just to give you a decent bump. And then what's going to happen is even though you're increasing calories, you're still going to stay in a deficit, a small deficit. And what can happen is the initial handful of weeks of the reverse, you're going to lose a little bit more weight, which puts you kind of below where you wanted to maintain. So if you wanted to maintain it around 130, and over the next 5-6 weeks, you get down to say 127, 128 pounds. Well, now as you gain weight, you're coming back to that 130. So that can be a good strategy to kind of help with the weight gain of the reverse and keeping you in a little bit better position. But now don't now make the 127 pounds your new standard. Don't do that, please. So that can be an option too. And a lot of people do well with that. I shouldn't say a lot, but some people do well with that. The thing you always need to consider though is the reverse diet's the hardest part, especially post-diet. Your body is going to talk to you hard. It's going to fight you hard. You're going to be hungrier during the reverse phase than you were during the cut. I can almost promise it. So it can be all well and good to say, this is what I'm going to do. But then when you're in the moment, it gets really hard. Plus, psychologically, you're now focused on, I want to eat more food, not I want to lose weight. You can deal with hunger a little bit better when you're losing weight. It's harder to deal with it when you're trying to just maintain your weight. You know what I mean? So you got to be honest with yourself and what you can realistically stick to. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's see. How do I count the calories from sweet potatoes? In every different site or app, they have different calories, maybe even 30% difference. I'm gonna send you to a website. The biggest thing, no matter what, is whatever you choose, just do it consistently. So you're using the same thing moving forward, right? So whether it's 10 or 20 calories higher or lower, it's not going to make any real difference. We don't need to be. It's not that serious. We don't have to be that perfect. But if you want to use this website, that's the USDA database. You can go in there and you can search for any food and it'll give you different measurements, raw, cooked, all the different types of ways. You can set your own, use that, but then again, just use the same moving forward. As long as you're doing consistently, that's all that matters. I jumped from 178 to 185 pounds on the mini. So yeah, you were in a pretty good surplus then. I increased my calories from, whoa, that's why. You made a really big increase. 1,700 to 2,600, that's 900 calories. From a suppressed metabolism. That's big. I still lost weight on 2,200. Now I'm confused. Oh, I see. So you reversed from 17 to 26 and gained some weight, but then went down to 2,200 calories and started losing a little bit of weight. I would say if you're losing weight and it's a reasonable pace on the 2,200 calories, keep doing it. It may not happen for long, but as long as it's working, great. And then once it stalls out, then you can make some decreases from there. But if it's continuing to work, then I wouldn't go back down to 1,700. That your body might have really dug that reverse. Sometimes some pretty crazy things can happen by taking even just a small break. Everything starts firing up in the body again. Your metabolism starts to take off. Like, this isn't necessarily something I would say to expect. In fact, I wouldn't, but it can happen. So as long as you're seeing progress, keep it going. And you're very welcome. And then going quickly back to what I was talking about with the initial start of the reverse. I thought of this because I mentioned that some crazy things can happen. And the initial part of the reverse, while it's challenging, if you do this right, if you stick with it, this is when you see some crazy things happen. Some really fun stuff can happen. And if you see people losing weight in the reverse, this is how it usually happens. They finish their cut. They stay very diligent with the reverse coming out. And what ends up happening is your calories come up, but your metabolism starts to pick up. You start to recover better. You start to sleep better. Your hormones start to improve. Everything starts to upregulate in the body, and things can kind of take off. So sometimes, even though we're increasing calories, your metabolism is speeding up at a faster rate than you're increasing calories. And some really fun things can happen. And this is how you eventually get your calories nice and high. The problem is we make changes based on how you're gaining or losing weight or maintaining in a reverse. But if you're overeating all the time in a reverse, then you're going to be gaining weight quickly, and we have a hard time getting your calories up. And then it just kind of continues this cycle. Whereas if you stick with it, you keep systematically every week increase, and you're still maintaining your weight or maybe even losing weight. Pretty soon now you get to a point where you're eating tons of calories, have maintained, maybe even lost weight sometimes. This is what I'm saying. Some crazy things can happen. So I can't stress enough how important it is to stay diligent during the cut, or during the early stages of a reverse post diet. This is when some fun things happen, and you need to treat the reverse every bit like it's an extension of the cut. Because if you get sloppy, it can get ugly quickly. Your metabolism is just tanked at that point. So stay diligent, and some fun things can happen. And this is how you get to a place where you want to be. You get to eat all that food and minimize fat gain. How do I effectively build muscle while in a deficit? Unless you're coming back from a time away from training, or unless you're new to training, or unless you're going to start taking steroids, not something I recommend, but hey, to each their own, you're probably not going to build much muscle, if any, in a calorie deficit. This is usually going to be more for people who are coming back from a layoff, or maybe you got really kind of started slacking on your training, which is not uncommon at all. And then you start picking up your training again more intensely once you start a cut. Not a good idea, not what I recommend, but it happens. Then you're going to probably start building that back. But the best thing to give yourself the best chance, because again, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's less likely, not impossible, but to give yourself the best chance, make sure you're keeping your training intensity up. Make sure you're eating a sufficient amount of protein. I recommend around 1 gram per pound of body weight, anywhere between 0.8 to 1.2. Research has shown that really you only need about 0.8 grams per pound for building muscle, but there's more benefits to protein than just building muscle. Right? There's things like it helps you feel full, it has a high thermic effect to food, things like that. But just make sure you're keeping your protein up. And then the most important part, besides those two, is not losing weight too fast. The faster you lose weight, the more likely you are to lose muscle. So make sure your deficit doesn't create a pace of weight loss that's more than about 1% of your weight on average per week. You'll have some weeks that it might be a little bit more, some weeks much less. But as an average over time, you don't want to lose more than 1%. Because then you're going to, not only will you not build muscle, but you're going to be more likely to lose it. So the most effective way is to take it as slow as possible. When you bring your calories up during a reverse and maintain for a while, can you eventually cut on higher calories? Yes, you can. It's not a guarantee, but it is certainly possible, especially if it's been a longer period of time. And that's what the reverse does. It puts you in a better position again. So it's very, very, very much possible and likely, but not always. Sometimes it's just, like I said, I mentioned earlier in the live stream, some people have more adaptive metabolisms. So it just depends. Now a little water. I started my reverse before 3 months. I eat much more food than before, and I didn't gain even a single kilogram. That's awesome. Of course, I was increasing really slowly, 50 calories. I went from 1,700 to 2,400. That's it. That's exactly what I'm saying. Now, again, I can't promise that result to anybody else. And you just follow it up with, but I still feel really bad sometimes. That's it. Like, first of all, the slower you take it, the longer it's going to take to feel better. Second of all, we talked earlier in this live stream about body fat set points. And when you lose weight, you're below that set point. It takes a lot of time in that lower range of body fat for your body to realize that this is a new normal. So there's part of that. Like, the fastest way to feel better, unfortunately, is to put fat back on, but that's not something we're trying to accomplish. So hopefully it'll start to improve for you here soon. But this is exactly what I'm saying. The slower you take it and the more diligent you stay, the less likely you are to gain weight. Now, most people are still going to gain at least some, but this is going to minimize it. Even if you gain more than you want, you're still going to minimize it. It would have been worse if you weren't as diligent. So don't don't compare to anybody else. Your body's unique and your situation is unique. But yeah, good stuff. I just took a 2-week diet break after a year and a half of dieting. I've lost 115 pounds. Wow. Good for you. That's awesome. So far, I'm trying to lose the last 12 to 15 pounds or until my abs come in. Should I keep dieting or take breaks? How long? Let me see. A year and a half. I got to be honest. I get where you're at and I get wanting to reach that next level. But if I were you, I would stop trying to diet at this point and go into a good long maintenance phase and then come back to make that next push later. I understand wanting to lose a little bit more weight. I understand wanting to see those abs, but you got your whole life ahead of you. You're already a giant success. You could gain 40 pounds back and still be a giant success. I'm not saying do that, but I'm just saying you can gain some weight back and still be, you can gain 15 pounds back and still be a 100-pound success story. Like, that's fantastic. But to make that next push after a year and a half and that much weight loss, your body's just going to start fighting you hard. I mean, if you took a diet break, you took 2 weeks, that's great. If you want to make maybe one more push here and see, all right, so get a little bit more aggressive than you were before, make a quick push. Don't do this for a long time. Make a push, see if it's there. If your body's responding and you're feeling okay, keep going until your body fights you. But if you come back from that diet break and the body's just like, nope, which is very possible, then shift focus, reverse, go through a good building phase, set yourself up for success, come back. You'll get where you want to be eventually. There's no rush. You got your whole life. You should be so proud of what you've done. And I just don't want you to fall into the mistake so many people make. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen people lose over 100 pounds, but then they can't get that last little bit off that they want. And they become really depressed about it. And they get into this really negative place and just completely fall off and gain most of it, if not all of it back. I don't want that to happen to you. Do not fall into that. Be okay with stopping and coming back later. But congratulations. That's fantastic. That just makes my heart happy to hear that. And I'm glad that you're here to know that you've got to reverse out at some point, no matter what, so you don't fall into that same trap. Can you reverse diet to above maintenance, or are your maintenance calories the maximum for how many calories your body can handle without gaining fat? So your maintenance, if you're reverse dieting from a diet, as I mentioned previously, is your maintenance is now lower than your predicted maintenance, so to speak, because your hormones and your metabolism are suppressed. So when you reverse diet, your maintenance is going to change. That's kind of why we reverse diet, is to get your maintenance calories back up to a better place. So the term maintenance is often misunderstood. So your maintenance calories is whatever you're currently maintaining on, not any predicted number or anything like that, or any future number. So it's a moving target. My maintenance is 2150 in a cut, but I'm at 1650 in a deficit. Any chance I will be able to maintain at 25 to 28? Unlikely. I've seen some crazy things happen, but it's unlikely. You'd be doing well to get back up to 2150 again, because you're gonna have lost weight. Now, that being said, the only way you can really improve your metabolism beyond its own genetic potential is to build lean body mass, build extra muscle. Now, I will say this, and it can be a shortened period of time. Sometimes, especially when people get really lean, and as I mentioned, some crazy things can happen during a reverse. What can happen sometimes is things just get going like crazy. Like I said, you recover better, your metabolism takes off, your hormones are doing well, you're recovering better, you're feeling better, so you're moving around more, and you just get this huge boost, both like physiologically and psychologically, and your metabolism takes off, and all of a sudden you're eating way more calories than you ever thought, and you're maintaining, and then all of a sudden, 1 week, the hammer comes down, and all of a sudden you start gaining weight, and quickly. It's like there's this cutoff, and this is usually for people who get really lean, really lean, and like there's this cutoff where all of a sudden the body's like, okay, we're coming back to normal now. Things are settling down, and now you need to come back. So you might reverse back up to 2,400 calories with no weight gain whatsoever, and then all of a sudden you're gaining really fast. You might have to pull back now to like 2,200 calories or something like that to maintain from there. Everything is very unique. Oh, let's see, which is really weird because I'm not even that lean. Oh, I got to go back. So being that lean is relative. You're lean compared to what you used to be, not compared to anybody else. So if your body gets used to a certain body fat and you're well below that body fat, your body thinks that you're lean, whether you think you're lean or not. Yeah, the hunger hormones are real, man. Any tips on how to get down to 10 to 15% body fat? I've never lifted and I'm in the 160s and still 25% body fat. First thing is first, lift. Lift is the best thing that you can do from an exercise point of view to get down to a lower body fat. It just does. It's so powerful. Strength training is, and so that's step number one. I don't know anything about your past, anything about your history at all, so it's hard for me to give you a whole lot of advice. I don't know if you're in a position to go into a deficit at this point or not. Be patient, take your time, don't rush anything, go through periods of building and cutting, and keep protein high, and take your time. Don't try to lose weight too fast, and make sure it's a sustainable lifestyle for you and not some mad dash to the finish line is kind of like the short answer. Yeah, that's the body fat. I want to train in the full 50 to 30 rep range. Any reason I can't use the weight? I do 5 reps for then add reps slowly up to 30 over time and only then increase the weight so I can do. Boy, I'm having a hard time understanding that. The reason I can't use weight to do 5 reps and then add reps slowly up to 30 over time and then that would be a really long time. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend just going through different blocks. So like work in the lower range, like 5 to 8s one block, and then the next block do like 8s to 12s and 12s to 15s, and just cycle it and try to increase from there. If I'm not sure I'm understanding you correctly though or not. Sorry. How much cardio during diet breaks? I usually recommend dropping your cardio from around 30 to 50%. So if you were usually a higher percentage for lower cardio, a lower percentage for higher cardio. So what I mean by that is if you were doing 2 hours of cardio for the week, I would probably do an hour for the week. If you were someone who has to do a lot of cardio and say you're doing like 6 hours of cardio a week, then you might want to do more of like a 30% drop, because if you try to do half from 6 hours, that's a pretty big difference. Thank you, Kim. When should I cut calories? Should I cut calories if I see the scale stay around the same weight for 2 days to 3 and I don't see much progress in my body? No. I typically don't recommend making any changes until you haven't seen changes in weight / body composition for 2 weeks. So if things are working and in 1 week your things are kind of stalled out, first of all, check everything, because if you're seeing progress anywhere, you're seeing progress. Sometimes weight comes off and then measurements come later. Sometimes measurements come first and then weight. Sometimes measurements and weight stay the same, but you see visible difference, or your clothes start fitting better and things like that. If you're seeing progress anywhere, do not make any changes. Now, if you go 1 week, you don't see any changes, give it another week, nothing. All right, now we make an adjustment. But there's too many reasons in a couple days that weight could be up or down, and it's not body fat related. You got to give it time. Would you say that online calculators are accurate? Absolutely not. I've been maintaining on 2,700 when a calculator says my maintenance should be 1,900. I initially gained some weight, but it's plateaued. Yeah, they're highly inaccurate, and they can't take anything into consideration like your diet history, your genetics, things like that. It's all just math equations, and you're just so much better off doing like a diet recall, seeing what your personal calories are at and what's happening and adjusting accordingly. And that's why you really recommend, if you're going to start a cut and you don't know what you're eating, take a week and gather that data and see what it looks like, and then adjust from there. Because if you just take some random number off the internet, it could work. It might be your maintenance. Hell, you might even put you into a surplus. You have no idea. I mean, bottom line is, no matter what, you just monitor and adjust. So you could use those equations and then see how it's going and adjust. But I just don't think, I just don't personally like that method, and they can just be so wildly inaccurate. Gain weight and not reverse dieting. In my first 2 weeks of reverse dieting, I'm hopeful to see results. Gain weight, not reverse dieting. My first 2 weeks of reverse dieting. I think I understand. Sorry, Alexis, I don't think I understand. Gained weight, not reverse dieting in my first 2 weeks of reverse dieting. Sorry, I'm not following. But if you can clarify, let me know and I can answer. All right, so I've got some more questions over here. Tips for peri-workout nutrition to fuel performance for resistance training, intra-workout drink. Oh, that was my own note. So the question was tips for peri-workout nutrition, which if you don't know what that means, it's basically nutrition while you work out to fuel performance for resistance training. So in peri-workout nutrition is kind of like, I don't know if catch-22 or a not double-edged sword. Probably catch-22 would be the right phrase, because they can be helpful. But the thing is, when a peri-workout drink is the most helpful is when you probably don't want to do one, and that's when you're in a deficit. Your calories are low, you have minimal glycogen storage, your energy levels are low. So having that intra-workout drink would be helpful to fuel your performance. Like a carb drink is kind of like what I was getting at, like a drink that, even if it's just like a full Gatorade, just something that is quick carbs, yes, sugar, and it will help give you that immediate energy, especially in a calorie deficit when energy is low. That would be very helpful. But the problem is, the big negative to that is your carbs are already lower and limited. So if you use up your calories or your carbs on an intra-workout drink that doesn't do anything for you feeling-wise, now you're going to have less food to eat throughout the day. You're going to be more hungry, and it's going to be harder to stick to your plan. On the flip side, when you're in a calorie surplus, now you have the extra calories, the extra carbs to give the intra-workout drink. So you can do that, but you're probably not going to get much out of it because your glycogen storage, which if you don't know what glycogen is, it's basically stored energy in the muscles. So you consume carbs, your body breaks that down into glucose. That glucose then stores in your muscles and your liver. When you're in a calorie surplus, your muscle glycogen, which is how you use your energy for your muscles from your muscles, basically, that's way oversimplified, but good enough. They're already full, so your energy is already high, so you're not going to get much benefit out of the intra-workout drink. So that's why it's hard to make a recommendation. But if you want something, it just needs to be easy to digest. So that's why I recommend some sort of a drink, some kind of carb drink you can either mix together or is pre-made, like a Gatorade or whatever. Otherwise, you could bring like a banana or even some like Mike and Ike, some kind of candy or something like that you can just quick pop, and will be easy to digest and will bog you down. You don't want to eat anything that's going to fill you up and make you feel gassy or anything like that. All right, meaning I was in a deficit for so long that my metabolism slowed down and I gained weight. In your reverse, I'm assuming you're meaning that your metabolism slowed down and you gained weight, but that really wouldn't happen without some sort of change happening. And what I mean by that, and I'm not like accusing you of anything, don't take that the wrong way, but what can happen a lot is you diet down, your metabolism slows down, you start to feel much more tired, your hormones are out of whack, and you might eat the same amount of food, you might do the same amount of exercise, but because you're tired, you move around a lot less during the day and you expend less calories. Right, we always have this tendency to only look at diet and exercise, but our regular everyday life makes a huge difference. In Paul Revella actually just talked about this in one of his recent videos, and I kind of made a comment on it too, because it's so true. Like what can happen sometimes is somebody's stuck, they're not seeing any results, and then all of a sudden one week they'll see a huge drop in the scale, and you're like, well, what the hell just happened? Like, did you have any kind of change in your job or everyday life? And then, like, and his example was, oh yeah, this person went from a sedentary job to now they were a waitress and they were on their feet all day moving around. So if we move around less, which is a normal thing to happen when you're in a diet, and you now take what was maintenance and turn it into a surplus, so to speak. But yeah, hopefully the reverse will help you out here, and you start to feel better and get some more energy. Have you had experience helping clients get their periods back through reverse dieting or another way? I've had clients that didn't have their period, and then through reverse dieting were able to get it back. Yes. And again, a lot of that is just more time out of a deficit. What do you think about low carb, high fat diets, not keto? I'm in a deficit of 1460 maintenance Maintenance is around 2,100, but it's hard on my stomach when I eat protein and carbs. Can I still lose effectively? Yeah, absolutely. You can lose. I have one client who has her own personal beliefs about protein, and I'm not here to tell anybody what they should believe or not. And as much as I like to track macros or at least calories and protein, because there's just so much benefit in protein from a physiological perspective, it's still, calories is still number one. I'm not saying it's all that matters, but it's still the most important thing. And she saw fantastic results. I mean, she was losing right around just below 1%, like we wanted every single week, week after week after week. And she was only tracking calories, nothing else. I didn't give her any carb targets, fat targets, protein targets. I monitor it. I wanted her to report those so I could see, just in case. But she was pretty consistent with it anyways. Like her normal eating habits were very consistent. So it was about the same every week, anyway. And she has just continued. Even now she's reversed for a few months now at this point, and has almost completely maintained her weight just doing calories and a low protein. She only eats about 40 grams of protein a day typically. So it can be done. I mean, a calorie balance is number one. That doesn't mean that there aren't a ton of benefits to protein. There are. There's so many benefits to protein, but if your body doesn't personally like it for whatever reason and you have a hard time with it, doesn't mean you can't lose. What do you think about low fat, high carb, high protein? I know that it's recommended to keep fats around 25% of daily calories. I just don't like fats and I prefer really high carb. You as a general rule, I don't like to go below 20% of fat. In a deeper stage of a, this is also part of my next video, which is kind of funny. A deeper part of a deficit, then maybe 15%, but definitely no less than that. There's too many benefits. There's too many necessary things from fat. Fat is actually essential. You have to have fat. Carbs, for the most part, really aren't essential. Like they're very, like, don't take the word essential the wrong way, but you can live on basically no carbs. You can't live on no fat. So you need to have a certain amount for digestion, for hormones, for nutrient uptake and things like that. So it's not really something I recommend. But at the end of the day, if your protein and calories are the same, whether you prefer more from carbs or more from fat is mostly irrelevant. But we do want to keep, like I said, we want to keep a minimum amount of fat. Are BMR readings from a scale, like a 4-point BIA scale, accurate? No, not even close. Those things are going to be, I mean, you can literally step on that thing, get a reading, step off, step back on again, and it could be like 9% different. Yeah, don't pay attention to them really at all, in my opinion. I mean, they can be okay if they're relatively consistent. Everyone's a little bit different. So if you see it trending in the right direction over time, then that's good. But I still look, I go based off look more than anything. You're going to know if you're losing fat or not. You don't need a scale to tell you. Do you believe in the whoosh some people talk about? I don't anymore. I did initially. So to clarify, the whoosh effect is when you might be kind of stagnant with your weight, and then all of a sudden you see a big drop in the scale and it just stays there. And this definitely happens. I'm not suggesting that this pattern doesn't happen, but the theory behind the whoosh effect was that what happens is your body loses fat from the fat cell and then fills up with water. All right. And then eventually that water kind of releases from the fat cells. So it's like lose fat, fill up with water, your weight stays the same, then the water comes out at some point. Now you see that drop in the scale because there's less in the fat cells. When I first heard that, I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense. That really makes a lot of sense because I see it all the time when people are just kind of steady, big drop. It's not uncommon at all. The reason I changed my mind on that is because I see the same thing in reverse diets. Somebody might be steady, big jump on the scale, steady, big jump on the scale. All right, it wouldn't do that in the other direction. If it was water coming out of the fat cells, that wouldn't hold true in a reverse either. Am I saying that it's impossible for that theory to be true? No, but I'm saying it. I don't personally believe in it. But again, it doesn't really matter either. Exactly why. All we know is that it does happen, and we need to watch for it. In keeping fats between 30 and 60 grams per day, do you think this is a macro plan that can make some problems? Probably not in the long run, as long as you're not staying too close to that 30 all the time. And just pay attention to how you're feeling too. Like if you feel fine, you feel great, you have plenty of energy and everything's good, then don't worry. But if you're starting to see some physiological problems, check that fat. Fat is very helpful. Any tips to prevent me waking up after sleeping an hour and waking up due to hunger? Large portion dinner with fat and protein hasn't helped me, nor has melatonin. I always seem to wake up and snack. Instead of the large portion dinner, save up more for right before bed. Have a big meal or a very filling meal right before you go to sleep. So remember, protein is the most filling. Protein is so helpful for controlling hunger. Even whey protein. Like people say, well, whey protein doesn't help because it's a drink and you don't feel full. It's true. You probably won't feel as full immediately from a whey protein drink than you do like chewing and digesting food. But it still is going to suppress the hormone ghrelin. Protein significantly suppresses the hormone ghrelin, and that is nicknamed the hunger hormone. And when ghrelin's high, you feel hungry, so it brings that down. So by increasing protein, that can help. So if you save up some calories, have it right before you go to bed, that's going to be your best bet. And then if you still struggle with it, maybe even like just leave a protein shake by your bed, and if you wake up, hit it, slam it. Hopefully that's helpful. How to increase maintenance calories without gaining weight? Take your reverse diet. Oh, sorry. I do speak fast sometimes. To increase maintenance calories without gaining weight, the best way, most likely way to do that is to slowly increase calories. The slower you increase your calories, the more likely you are to maintain your weight. Again, I'm never going to promise that you won't gain any weight, but this is the best way you're going to minimize those chances. And if you're not eating a good amount of protein, increasing through protein is like it's almost foolproof. Actually, I've seen Wish with my own eyes. I was bulking before 2 years and I was not gaining weight. I started to eat a lot of junk and I was not gaining. One day I was just 3+ pounds or kilograms. Yeah, it's crazy what can happen sometimes. Split body workouts or full body, what would you recommend, or how would you use these different approaches? If you're newer to training, I think full bodies are great, especially if you're only doing 2 or 3 days of training per week. Then hitting everything in that is good. Split body is better for if you're training 4 or more days per week, or even 3 still, but there's ways to break that up. But there's not necessarily a right or a wrong or good or bad. And I'll cycle through different approaches. Sometimes I'll do a 4-day full body. Sometimes I'll do 1 body per week. And sometimes, most of the time, it's going to be multiple. And the reason is because, and when I say multiple, I mean I'm going to hit every muscle group at least twice per week. So like biceps twice per week, quads twice per week. You know, I don't like the single day because you get an increase in muscle protein synthesis every time you train. And if you only do it once per week, you only get that 1 increase. When you do it multiple times per week, you get multiple increases. And evidence has shown, it's been shown quite a bit actually, that training a muscle group twice per week, even with the same amount of volume throughout the training week, is more efficient at building muscle than 1 single day. So the whole overtraining thing is completely debunked. It's just you're not going to overtrain by hitting it more than once per week. This is more like if you're a steroid user, then one day per week might be okay because your protein synthesis is increased all the time synthetically. But there's no right answer. There's many ways to do things, change it up over time. Sometimes usually if I'm going to do the 1 day per week or 1 muscle group per week, it's if I'm in like an actual recovery block, like a whole block of just focusing on recovery. Awesome. Glad you like it. Thank you. And yeah, I might have to do this more often. It's going better than I thought it would. So how much longer do you think I should take a diet break? You know what? There's no, you could take it as long as you wanted. The 2 week is kind of like what I recommend, but if you're not gaining, or especially if you're losing, I would just keep it going. If you're losing, keep it going until you stop losing for sure. The more time you take, especially if you're maintaining, the better off you're going to be. So maybe take a month or 2 and then come back. But if you want to just make a quick cut, you certainly can. All right. 1 meal a day, pros and cons. I lose weight and feel fantastic on the regimen, but I tend to rebound quickly if I stray. So we've kind of covered this a bit, but really the pros and cons of a meal a day is the pro is it just makes it easier to eat less calories. If you're eating 1 meal a day and that's all you're eating, it's hard to eat a lot in one meal. And well, not always, but it's just like, okay, say your maintenance calories is 2,500. If you're trying to eat 2,500 calories in one meal, well, that's a lot of food for one meal. So it makes it easier to eat less. You're gonna fill up for that one meal, probably well below that. It's gonna help you lose weight because you're gonna eat in a calorie deficit. The cons is how sustainable is it to literally only eat one meal every single day. The other con would be while it's the same. If your macros are the same, whether you do it multiple times per day or one time per day, for fat loss, for the most part, it's probably going to be the same, but it's not going to be very optimal for muscle because you're only going to be stimulating protein synthesis once per day versus multiple times per day. So that's a drawback to it as well. But the main drawback is exactly what you said. You said, if I stray, I rebound quickly. And that's a lot of times that comes down to, well, I'm off the diet anyways, no matter what diet we're talking about, whether it's OMAD or keto or paleo or whatever. Well, I'm off it, so what's the point? I might as well do everything, eat anything and everything I can until I get back on my diet again tomorrow, and that just destroys people. So the sustainability side of things it's important, and that's probably the biggest issue. Fat burners. So the main benefit of a fat burner is the appetite suppressant that comes with it. So you can't take a fat burner and keep everything the same and burn more fat. It doesn't work that way, right? The benefit of a fat burner is they're usually loaded with caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant and it has a small thermic effect, but nothing that's going to be significant or make any real difference. But caffeine is an appetite suppressant, so it helps you feel fuller and therefore eat less calories. So especially if you've been in a calorie deficit for a long time, you're feeling really run down and tired, taking fat burners can help you feel more alert, help you with appetite control, and therefore stick to your plan better and feel better, probably move around more, be a little bit more active. We just talked about how being more active throughout the day can make a big difference. So that's the main benefit. But if no variables are changed in what you're doing and then you add a fat burner into it, then it does nothing for you. So, yeah. Some myths on fat loss. That's too funny. That's kind of like my plan for a video in a couple weeks. Detoxes, fat burners, we just covered. Carbs at night make you fat. That's a myth. Insert any food here that says you can't lose weight eating that food. You can lose weight on eating any food in the entire world. I don't care what food it is. If you're in a deficit, you can lose weight. What else? More extreme is better. That's definitely not the case. Relying on supplements, apple cider vinegar, doing nothing but cardio, things like that. Is the most useful thing inside pre-workouts simply the caffeine, or does it do anything more? I've never used them and not planning to because I feel like they are kind of a gimmick. It's most of the time it's caffeine. Most like crappy pre-workouts, it's just that. Yeah, it's loaded with caffeine. But there are some compounds that can be helpful, like citrulline malate is a really good one. Beta alanine might be good more for extended periods, like if an exercise lasts for more than a minute, that's when that's beneficial. A lot of them have creatine, which it's kind of like it is helpful for performance, absolutely, but it's not really because you took it pre-workout. It's more of a stored energy, but they usually have that, and that is helpful. But yeah, there can be some compounds in it, but most supplements are they'll put some of these other compounds in there and say, I have this, look, it's based on research, it's been shown to be effective, but then they underdose it. So like with citrulline malate, I think it's either 6 or 8 grams, something like that, that is shown in science to be helpful at improving performance. Well, they'll put 1 gram in and say, yep, it's got citrulline malate. Well, it's not going to do anything for you because there's not enough in it, but they can say it's in there, but you don't really get anything out of it. So that's why I love Core Nutritionals. I have discount code Colin you can use for any of their products. Everything that they have is dosed based on what science has shown to be effective. They don't underdose anything. They don't use proprietary blends or anything like that. You know what you're getting. I love them. Take it with a grain of salt. I know people always get mad when you try to sell anything. And that's why I don't talk about it very often. But I love Core Nutritionals products, and I used them long before I became an ambassador. And rant. So hitting a body part twice a week is still applicable during a cut. Absolutely. Really, training doesn't really change at all for the most part, from whether you're cutting or building. It stays pretty much the same. Is it okay to track calories without weighing food? Yeah, it's okay. It's just going to be less accurate. It depends on your level of knowledge and experience. If you've been doing it for a long time, you can look at a food source and know what a rough portion size is, and you can have a rough idea. If you've never really paid attention before, you have no clue. So I always talk about in my videos, you got to build the knowledge base first. That's why I love, at least initially, tracking macros, weighing out all your food, doing all this stuff, building the knowledge base so that down the road you have a good idea and you can just look at food and know. But if you don't have that knowledge base built in, you have no clue. And that's why we always just tend to look at, well, this food is good, this food is bad, and that just never ends well. But if you want to be as accurate as possible, get the best results possible, weighing your food on a food scale. All right, don't use volume unless you have to. I did a video a long time ago that showed I think it was like a half a cup of oats. I put it in, I leveled it out. I showed how it was like right on the dot for a half a cup, and then I poured it in to a bowl on a food scale in grams, because it always tells you in grams or volume, like teaspoon, tablespoons, whatever, cups. And I poured it in, and it ended up being like 30% more than what showed in volume. So if you can weigh by gram, that's always the most accurate way to do it. All right, let's see. I'll lose my voice here. I really liked, hold on, I need water. If you're still there, smash that like button. Isn't that what YouTubers are supposed to say? I really like the accept your hunger mindset that you discussed recently. Hammering that down. Hammering that down would be helpful. So yeah, I mean, the mental side of things, it's just so overlooked and so important with everything. And it's like, just accepting that hunger is going to be a part of the process is probably going to make you less hungry and make the process less miserable. Like if you're this goes for everything, honestly. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a side rant topic, whatever you want to call it here. And maybe you might think it's a little cheesy, but I really truly believe in this. And that is, I think that accepting reality for what it is one of the most important things that you can possibly do, not only to get results, but just to be happy in life and to make progress in whatever you're trying to accomplish. Because so often we hang on to things that are completely out of our control that cannot be changed. And we allow it to put us in these really negative mental spaces. And we allow it to be our reasons why we can't do what we want to do when it really isn't. It's just frustrating. I have a funny saying from an old coworker I used to love, but it also is very true. He used to always say, wish in one hand and shit in the other. And it always made me laugh, but it's true. Like if you wish for something that isn't possible, what good is that going to do you? So if reality is reality, if it is what it is and you can't change it, and you hold on to that and get really frustrated by it and let it beat you down and put you in a negative place, it's only going to work against you. Not until you accept reality for what it is can you possibly move forward with that reality and move towards what you're trying to accomplish. But if you hold on to it, if you wish things were different, if you get tied up in things that you have no control over, it's a losing battle. In the battle of reality versus our emotions, reality is won 100% of the time, and it never will lose, ever. You can't change it. If it's something you can't change, don't let it get to you. Don't let it beat you down, and move forward. And then, so tying that back into the accept your hunger, that's a reality of cutting. You're going to diet, you're going to be hungry. By accepting that as a part of the process, it helps you move forward and basically accept it and not let it be a reason why you hate it and you don't want to do it, because like, you know that it's going to be a part of the process. So just deal with it. Just deal with it. Like, everyone who's ever dieted has been hungry. That doesn't mean you can't get results. Just because you're hungry doesn't mean you have to eat. Yeah, there's different strategies you can take to help with hunger. I just did a video on this, but just by accepting it, a lot of times it actually makes you less hungry, because now you're not chasing it. When you're chasing hunger, when you're trying to do anything and everything you can to not feel hungry, it usually just makes you even more hungry, because it's just on your mind all the time. Whereas if you accept that hunger, then it's off your mind, because you're like, well, whatever, it is what it is. And now you don't feel as hungry because you're not so focused on it. Your mind goes wherever your focus goes, wherever your mind goes. Sorry, this is how I talk. If it's too much for you, I understand, but it's just is how I talk. I apologize. I do hear that from time to time. I've tried to slow down. It just never works. I apologize for that. If it doesn't work for you, I understand it. I am who I am, right? No. Are Versa grips or something like that worth it? I love my Versa grips. So it really depends. It can be very helpful to feel whatever muscle, like your rowing muscle, your rowing muscles, I guess, your lats and stuff. If you're trying to do different rows, so your grip doesn't give out and you're not doing a lot of forearm and bicep, you can concentrate more on hitting those lats. The main drawback would be especially if you're a power lifter, you need good grip strength, or any type of competition where you need to be able to hold on to something like a bar. Like if you're doing deadlifts and you're always using straps, and then in competition you can't use straps, you're not going to be able to hold on to the weight. So you need to have that good grip strength. And there is value in grip strength, but you don't have to train for that way to have the grip strength either. You could work on grip strength on its own. If you're worried about grip strength, use Versa grips for your rowing movements, and then just train your grip strength, like do plate pinches and things like that, and train it separately if you're really worried about it. I love them. I use them almost all the time with back exercises, and sometimes deadlifts if I'm having issues with holding the bar because I don't have chalk or something. Thank you so much, Brittany. I really appreciate that. Glad to hear things are going well too. Paul is the man. I have so many reverse diet videos, man. I could never do that in a live video. It would take another 2 hours to go over it all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a link. It's going to be to a playlist that I have. It covers what I consider to be all the best videos or most useful videos I've done on reverse dieting. If you watch through all these videos, it will tell you everything you need to know. And if I'm speaking too fast in them, play it at like 0.75 speed, right? Here we go. Reverse diet playlist. Already did the old mad pros and cons. Go back maybe about 20 minutes or so after this is done, and it'll be in there. I love that saying, Kim. I lost 10 pounds in the last year by cutting out nut butters. New lifter since June while gaining reversing. I did a mini cut in December, but lost strength and had ED tendencies. My goal is to recomp by losing at least 10 pounds of fat. Do I keep reversing? Will another mini cut help me, and when? So at a certain point, the recomp is going to stop. It'll work great for a while, but eventually you're going to have to do actual cutting and building phases. I think what's probably going to help you, my initial thought is, there's so many things I don't know about you and your history, but my initial thought is, like you said, mini cuts, shorter cuts, or longer cuts, but with more frequent diet breaks. Make sure you're doing double refeeds each week, and this will help with hormones and everything like that. And then again, accepting your reality and doing what you need to do to get through it, and just trying to make it quick and get out. Don't dilly dally and just get it done. I don't know if that's helpful or not. That's best I got right now, anyways. But what I wouldn't do is go into a cut. If the thought of going into a cut makes your skin crawl, do not go into a cut. You don't want to do it unless you're 100% ready to go all in. Not perfect, but really go all into the cut. You have a good one too. Thank you. If I'm coming out of a surplus wanting to lose body fat, can I continue to build if I go down to just below maintenance. I'm assuming you're talking about muscle here. The smaller the maintenance, the more likely you are to be able to maybe build a little bit, at least maintain. But again, when you're going into a cut, the focus shifts away from building muscle and it turns into maintaining your muscle. But by losing the body fat, it's going to give you the appearance of having more muscle. So a lot of people say, here, look at me before my cut, look at me after my cut. Obviously, I built a bunch of muscle because they look much more muscular. Well, no, not necessarily, and probably not. The reason you look more muscular is because the body fat that was there is no longer there, and the muscle that you had built previously is now being displayed better. So unless you're going in and getting testing done to actually see how much muscle mass you have, and even those aren't totally accurate. Hey, what's up, man? Good to hear from you. I actually looked on the script where it shows you're a subscriber or whatever, and it said that you were 4 years ago. Like, that's crazy to think at this point. Like, it's been that long. Check out Grey Wolf Fitness. Funny guy from the UK. He will make you laugh. All right. The strange thing that was that my refeed days set off. That's not abnormal at all. So they're saying that the refeed days actually made them feel more of the eating disorder tendencies and get a little bit more food focused. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's like, by getting the extra food, it sets you off into, I want more. Like, and there could be some hormonal reasons for this too. Like you get a little bit more and your body's like, yes, keep it coming. So if you find that, I mean, you don't have to do refeeds. You don't have to do them. They're beneficial. And everyone's a little bit different too. Like occasionally, some people just don't respond well to refeeds. For most people, they're super beneficial. Every once in a while, you'll run into somebody, every time you give them a refeed, their weight spikes up pretty drastically and has a hard time coming back down. Now, an initial spike, as long as it comes right back down, is not a problem. It could be water and things like that. But if you're constantly giving refeeds and then seeing a big spike and then coming right back down to where you were a week later, and this is repeating over and over again, your body just might not like refeeds for whatever reason. I have done a diet for a photo shoot and attempted very low body fat levels, and I did a slower reverse diet. And from September to now, I regained 7 kilos, but I gained a bunch of fat on my stomach. And my body fat distribution was F due to hormonal issues and spending a lot of time dieting, I think. But now I'm in a good hormonal spot, not food focused, regained some muscle, feeling strong, and my calories increased from 2250 to 3250. I would like to do another mini cut on February. Let me back up. I don't know how long you had dieted for. I don't know if you haven't been out of the diet for at least as long as you dieted, I would not recommend it. And even then I still probably wouldn't recommend it unless it's been quite a while. You don't have to gain more either. Just cut your if you're still gaining, cut your calories back a little bit and find your new maintenance and just hold it. You don't have when you're reverse dieting, you don't have to just raise calories forever. You can get up to a certain point where you're happy and then just hold it and just. There's so much value in just holding those higher calories for a long time. But from April to August, don't go into a mini cut yet. It's too soon. You need time. Especially it sounds like you got really lean and the body's going to want to fight, in my opinion. Stay tuned for either Monday or Tuesday. I have a video about mini cuts coming up. I thought refeeds were a must. Nope. I mean, they're not a must. They're very beneficial, very, very helpful. Or maybe for you, a better approach would be the like 2 week on, 2 week off diet break approach. I don't know if you view a diet break the same way. I mean, it's essentially a refeed only extended for a longer period of time, but that might be a better strategy. A couple weeks of cutting, a couple weeks of diet break, back and forth, keep you in a better spot. That might work. I would like to take off this chunk of fat. I get it, man. Or I guess I don't know. Yeah, I'm assuming you're a man. Sorry. But yeah, just it's not going to be worth it. The risk reward ratio is all screwed up. Your risk is high, your reward is low. And if you jump into a mini cut and it doesn't go well, you risk setting yourself back. And it's just be patient. Your time to cut will come again. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. Whew, going on almost 2 hours. I got some more here. We'll do this for a little bit longer at least. Oh, so I had a question, and I chose, and I told this person that I wasn't going to address it here, but I wanted to speak on it because it's a common problem. And this person's question was basically along the lines of, I was at this calories, I've gotten my calories up to this amount of calories. I want them to get to this amount of calories and then cut. And they went on to a bunch of other stuff. But the big thing I wanted to mention here is this is a mistake a lot of people make. And I have, they wanted to know, how to come out of the reverse and how to cut. So there was that, and then also how to end your reverse diet. So I have links in the description of this that I put in ahead of time. One about how to know when to end a reverse diet, how long your reverse diet should be, and how to adjust your macros when it's time to cut. So those are all in the description if you're interested in checking those out. But the mistake that this person was going to make that I hopefully talked them out of was they were just going to get to, I think it was like 2,200 calories. And then once they hit that amount of calories, they were going to cut. I was like, no, you can't do that. This is such a common mistake. If you just get your calories up to a certain spot and then slash them as soon as you get there, your body will have had no time whatsoever to adapt those calories, and it will have done you no good. You won't get anywhere with it. Your body won't respond. It just won't go well. Or I shouldn't say won't. It's unlikely to, where there's a high probability that it won't respond well. Sure, it's possible, but it's just not likely. And I've seen it time and time again. Your body needs time to adapt to the higher calories. And there's no like specific number you need to get to. I've done videos on that before too. Once they get up to a reasonable place, a good spot for you, then it's time to hold. How long depends significantly. And that's why I have those videos linked in the description, how long to reverse. That will cover how long you should reverse, because it depends on so many different things, but much longer than most people do. At some point I felt hungry during the reverse, but as time went on, I'm finding it hard to get. Yeah, that's very normal. And that's a good sign that you're in a good spot metabolically and hormonally once you start feeling overly full during your reverse. Has anyone else ever noticed their eyesight improves when dieting for a while or low carb or fasting? I noticed that more carbs I eat, the more I need reading glasses. That's really bizarre. And that's actually opposite of what I would expect, because it is possible actually for your vision to go a little bit if you've been really low calorie and lost a lot of weight. Your vision can get affected by it, something that not a lot of people understand. Never heard of it in the other direction though. There could be a reason. Ask your doctor. I'd be very interested to hear what they have to say about that, your eye doctor. Very welcome. Thank you. I will. Have a good one, Kim. Thanks for stopping by. All right, let's see. I think it might be, I think I had a couple more over here. I already covered that one. All right, this person was asking calories and supplements, things like fish oil, BCAAs, things like that. Should they be counted in your calorie budget or not? My answer to that is it depends if it bothers you or not. So again, as long as you're doing the same thing every day, it doesn't matter. Like if you have the exact same amount of fish oil, there's usually around 20 calories per serving of fish oil. If you have the same amount of fish oil every single day, always, whether you count it or not doesn't matter, because you're still going to make adjustments based off how things are going and reduce your calories so many. So you're still reducing from the same amount. You're still going to eat however many the same amount of calories less would be. Like if you're going to eat 200 calories less, it would still be 200 calories less, if that makes sense. I'm having a hard time explaining that. But as long as you're consistent, it doesn't matter. If you don't mind tracking them, if it doesn't mentally bother you, then fine. Most of the time I say don't worry about it, especially with like BCAAs. Like, yes, there are calories in it, but I don't get overly concerned about it. It's minuscule. And one of the things I find too, like people that get really bent out of shape about tracking every little thing like that are the same people who then go on massive cheat meals. They freak out about being 5 calories off one day, but then all of a sudden a 5,000 calorie cheat meal doesn't matter. And then they can't figure out why they're not losing weight, and that could very well be because they're so dialed in to being perfect all the time that they feel they need to have this huge freedom day that just keeps them stuck. You're better off being more balanced, in my opinion, and not going on massive cheats. Doesn't mean you can't have days of higher calories or untracked meals, but there's a difference between stuffing your face endlessly as much as possible and having a little something. Very welcome, man. Thank you. So yeah, bottom line on that, if it bothers you, don't do it. If it doesn't bother you, do it. Or you got that one, or you got that one. Can you realistically add weight to the bar each week? Absolutely not. Can you imagine, like, let's just say you added 5 pounds to the bar every single week. All right, there's 52 weeks in a year. What is that? 250, 260. You would add 260 pounds to the bar every year. So after 10 years, you would have a 2,600 pound squat. Like, obviously not. You can't add every single week. In the beginning stages, if you're new to training, then yeah, you can add pretty quickly. You're going to get stronger really, really fast, but it's going to slow down. The longer you do it, the more experienced you get, the harder it becomes to gain more strength, and you have to take different strategies. In the beginning, you can do whatever the hell you want and see great results. Like, so if you're new to training, don't stress out about, don't fall into paralysis by analysis and not do anything because you're worried about doing the right thing. You can do anything. If you've never trained before, show up to the gym, do anything. You're gonna see results. The body just adapts really fast then. But no, you're definitely not gonna be able to realistically add. So that's this one question I can't answer. Is it strength goals for short women with bad genetics? I don't even know what that means. I don't mean that negatively, but it's just there's no context at all. And what is bad genetics? What does that even mean? For one person, that means they can't build muscle. For the other, it means they can't lose weight. For the other person, it means they can't get stronger. I can't answer that. Sorry. Oh, I got more here. Oh, you're too sweet. So let's suppose that I have achieved my goal and I have a healthy body weight. How many times per month can I have an extra calorie meal, like pizza, donuts, etc.? I want to have normal eating habits, nothing crazy. You know, it really kind of depends in what works better for you. I typically, I at least once a week, personally, go out and have whatever I want within reason, and don't worry about it. And I don't track it and things like that. And then it's just kind of a part of my routine. But I've been doing this for years now. I have a pretty good relationship with food now. I didn't used to. I used to have a horrible relationship with food. Ask my wife. But you have to kind of ease into it. And the biggest thing is not falling into, okay, well, I'm having pizza, so I need to eat as much pizza as possible. This is where people just get destroyed. I need to have a day where I can have pizza, but instead of having a couple slices of pizza, it's let me have the whole pizza. You know what I mean? It's that all or nothing mentality again. So ease into it. Have 1 week, have an untracked meal, and and then the next week maybe you have an untracked day, and just kind of like if you look up I have a video called How to Eat Intuitively Without Gaining Weight, I think. Look that up, or my name in that. And I kind of walk through how to like systematically wean yourself off tracking and become more intuitive. How can you differentiate between water or fat? Consistency over time, pictures, measurements, how your clothes are fitting, and then just do it over time. And to like bloat, like if you're super bloated, you're holding water. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had a client check in and go, "Coach, my weight is up and there's no reason for it. I'm so frustrated. I can't believe my weight's up. There's no reason it should be up, but well, I am on my period and I had a lot of sodium and I'm super sore from my training and I'm feeling really bloated." Like, okay, there was obviously plenty of reasons why weight was up, but it's just so hard to detach our emotions from the scale sometimes. So that was my little side rant, I guess. What do you think about people using PCOS as an excuse to not be able to lose weight? In my experience, hormonal balance affects weight loss because it affects the calories out. I've worked with several, well, I shouldn't say several. I've worked with a handful of PCOS clients. Some have done great, some have not. I have found that they definitely have to be more aggressive. It is more difficult most of the time. Is it an excuse? I mean, I kind of hate the word excuse. Is it a greater challenge? 100%. Does it mean they can't lose weight? No, right? Anyone can create a calorie deficit, but there is an extra layer of challenges there for sure, without question. I believe it's better to fix the hormonal problem before weight loss comes to mind. Yes, but that's not necessarily something they can necessarily fix either. Again, no doctor. What's your opinions on the surge Nuprint method? I've never even heard of it. Doing 20 minutes of nonstop crunch and reverse crunch for abs instead of doing classic cardio. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. You can't spot burn fat. You're probably going to burn more calories from doing classic cardio than you are doing a bunch of crunches. So to display abs, you got to build abs. You have to build that muscle, but then you have to lose the body fat, and you can't spot burn body fat. So in my opinion, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I guess it would be cardio if you're doing it nonstop. That sounds horrible. I guess if you enjoy it, then great, but not something I would probably recommend. All right, last question I have over here. If anything else comes in, I will address that too. Otherwise, we'll call it. Been over 2 hours. Wow. And I can't really answer this question very well either, but it says in a lean bulk, let's say 200 calorie surplus, how much goes to muscle and how much goes to fat? I honestly have no idea. I'm not going to even pretend like I can make up an answer here. And again, it depends a lot, especially training experience. Someone who has very little training experience, is new to the gym, is going to have a much higher percentage of the weight gain going to muscle than fat. Someone who has a crap load of experience and is basically at or near their genetic potential of building muscle, they're going to be it's going to be almost all fat. You know what I mean? So that's your biggest determining factor, is how experienced you are and how fast are you building muscle. I don't really know, but it doesn't necessarily matter either. You need that small surplus to optimally build. How much goes in doesn't really matter. Should the over 50s train differently for muscle growth? Nope. Outside of, it's a little bit harder as we get older to recover. So we need to keep ourselves healthy, and because you can't build muscle if you're not in the gym, right? So if you're getting injured, then it's a different story. In terms of like how is muscle built, nothing changes, right? It's more challenging. Our hormones aren't quite our anabolic hormones aren't quite where they used to be, but it can certainly be done. So your training methods don't change outside of if doing a lot of squatting and stuff is going to break you down and keep you out of the gym, then you don't want to do that. So you need to prioritize recovery and make sure you're training in a way that doesn't jeopardize injury as much, would be the main things. You're very welcome. Oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. All right. You're very welcome. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was much better than I thought it would be. I was afraid that nobody would show up and I'd be here by myself and they'd just click away. So I'm so happy we did this. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all of your support. I really appreciate it. If you're interested in any coaching, check out my website, callandawaytraining.com. Go to online coaching and apply there, and I'll do a video covering your application. And have a great weekend. And I appreciate you very much. Thanks. Let's see if I can figure out how to end this. There we go.